everybody, I am Tom, and welcome back to another video of English for breakfast, where we have English for breakfast and then just coax off a body fat for the next 50 years. This is a fairly new channel, so if you do end up enjoying this video or just any others on this channel, make sure to click subscribe and that like button down below. Today we will be continuing our series on the topic poetry. Last month we wrote a haiku poem, and today we're gonna write something very similar. It is called a Cinquain poem. Now, first of all, you might be thinking, hey, Tom, you've got it wrong. It clearly says Cinquain, not Cinquain. But search it up if you want. I assure you, it's Cinquain, not Cinquain. Honestly, I don't know why. Alright, let's leave pronunciations for now and go to the rules of the Cinquain poem, because oh my goodness, the pronunciation makes my head spin. Okay, so the rules of the Cinquain poem. Now, the Cinquain poem is similar to the haiku poem in many ways. It also deals with syllables. But unlike the haiku poem, the Cinquain poem has 5 lines instead of the usual 3 that appears oh so often in haiku poems. The Cinquain poem, so much alike to the haiku poem, also limits your use of syllables in each line. The Cinquain poem's syllables limits are really easy to remember. It has 5 lines. The first line always has to be 2 syllables, the second line has to be 4 syllables, the third line has to be 6 syllables, the fourth line 8 syllables, and the last line 2 syllables again. Remember about haikus, where you have to write about nature? Well, that rule doesn't actually apply to a Cinquain poem, so you could write about anything you want. Video games, sports teams, toys, whatever you want. Cinquain poems, however, do have very strict rules about what you put in each line and what it is about. Let me show you. Every single line has its own jobs. The first line is the topic of the poem. The second line is to describe the topic. The third line is some action that the topic does. The fourth line is to describe the topic again. And the fifth line is just the name of the topic again, but said in a different way. To get a better understanding of what a Cinquain poem looks like, let's first look at a few examples of Cinquain poems other people wrote to get an idea of what Cinquain poem looks like and sounds like. The first poem we will be looking at is called Penguin by Ebony. Okay, so does this poem qualify as a true Cinquain poem? Let's find out. First, let's look at the syllables. The first line is penguin, and the first line should be 2 syllables. Penguin. Good. The second line, flightless, gentle. Now, the second line of a Cinquain poem is supposed to be 4 syllables, so is it correct? Flightless, gentle. Right you are. It is 4 syllables. Now let's look at the third line. Swimming, flipping, freezing. The third line is supposed to be 6 syllables. Swimming, flipping, freezing. Correct. That's 6 syllables. Let's look at the fourth line, or the second last. Wandering in the cold Arctic. Now, the fourth line is supposed to be 8 syllables, so does this qualify? Wandering in the cold Arctic. That's 8 syllables. So it is correct. Now let's look at the final and the last line of this poem. Soft bird. Is that 2 syllables? Soft bird. It is. So congratulations, you have qualified for the syllable category. So they got the syllables right, but do they have their lines and their jobs right? Now, the first line of a Cinquain poem is the topic of the poem. And this poem's topic is penguin, so it is correct on the first line. It also very cleverly just puts the first line in big letters to represent that it is, in fact, the title of the poem. The second line of the Cinquain poem is supposed to describe the topic or the first line. Now, does this describe penguin? Flightless, gentle. Yes, it does. On to the third line we go. The third line is supposed to be an action that the title or the topic does. Swimming, flipping, freezing. Does that sound familiar? Well, yeah, those are all actions penguins like to do. The fourth line of a Cinquain poem is to describe the topic once again. So, does wandering in the cold Arctic describe penguin? Well, it does. Penguins wander around the Arctic. And finally, the fifth and the last line of our Cinquain poem. Now, the last line of a Cinquain poem is usually a repeat of the topic, just said in a different way. So, does soft bird and penguin align? Well, yes, they do. So congratulations, Ebony, you have written a officially correct Cinquain poem. Okay, we've looked at an example, and now we know what is and what isn't a Cinquain and what to watch for when we're writing. So now we make our own. Okay, so the first thing to consider when we're writing a Cinquain poem is what's the topic, as the whole poem will be surrounding it and it will be the first and last line of the poem. Last time we wrote about fire, so I just had an idea that maybe this time we could write about something related. Thunder. When you are choosing a title for a Cinquain poem, you need to consider very carefully. Not only does the title need to have 2 syllables, it also needs to have a substitute you can use for the last line that also has 2 syllables. For our case, thunder has a substitute. That is lightning. Okay, so just like that, we have knocked out 2 of our 5 lines of our Cinquain poem. Only 3 remain. Now, the second line of a Cinquain poem describes the topic. So, what does lightning do, or what is lightning like? Well, it's bright, so we could just put something like as bright as light, just to round off the second line. Okay, thunder, as bright as light. Now, what would the third line be? I mean, it has to be action, so what does thunder or lightning do? Well, it flashes through the sky, so we could write about that. Now, flashing through the sky is only 5 syllables. We need to stick on 1 more syllable, so we can just put in something like flashing through the gray sky to round off the last syllable and complete the third line. And that brings us to the fourth line of our Cinquain poem, and it is the last line we need to write. So the fourth line is to describe the topic again. So what could we say? I mean, we've already said that it's as bright as light, so maybe we could say it strikes the ground angrily? So for the last line, we could just put something like striking the ground angrily. Wait, no, that's 7 syllables. Maybe striking the surface angrily? Yeah, that's way better. So now that we've written all our lines for our Cinquain poem, I present to you thunder. As bright as light, flashing through the gray sky, striking the surface angrily, lightning. And there we have it. We've written a Cinquain poem. Just remember, the next time you're writing a Cinquain poem, it's Cinquain, not Cinquain. But the real way to get really good at poetry writing is to